Test, test. Hello, hello. Welcome to a sacred hymn and testimonial recital. A couple housekeeping things before we get this show on the road. If you have your phone and would like to, I have made a PDF of all the lyrics of the hymns that I'm going to present today. So I'm going to keep this up for a minute or two. So if you have the capacity to QR scan that, if you would like to use that PDF of the lyrics to follow along as we play. Obviously, there won't be any singing, but at least you can know the words that are associated with the hymns that we are doing today. If you don't have that ability, I will also share it in the chat here in just a sec. But thank you for attending on this Good Friday of 2025. And hopefully that was long enough. So we will begin. Here we go. All right. And again, I'm sharing in the chat. I just shared the link to that same PDF if you want to follow along. We are going to begin our recital with one of my favorite hymns, melodically wise, melody wise, which is Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. There was a brass CD / I guess you could call it LP when it came out by an arranger named Ralph Carmichael. And his arrangement of this Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing was probably one of my favorites on that album, although it's a great album to begin with. And I will admit this arrangement is inspired by that. And so anyway, this is my arrangement of Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Well, thank you very much. Again, that was Come Thou Fount Every Blessing. Next on the program is a very famous hymn, Abide With Me. This one has a very meaningful story for me, but also I'll just start with the less meaningful, is that early in my playing career, I was introduced to a piece called Three Hymn Tune Settings for Horn and Piano by a guy named Paul Bassler. I think that's how you say his name. Anyway, he had his own arrangement of this Abide With Me, and I've known it for years, and I've always found it to be a beautiful melody. And then I find out that on my grandmother's funeral, when she passed away about 6 years ago, I was asked to perform some hymns, her favorite, and this was one of her favorites. And so the side note is that this is, I think, if I remember correctly, this is the very first hymn I ever arranged 6-ish years ago, which then started this journey of being willing, able, and feeling confident enough that I actually could do that. And so this was the catalyst. This was the very first. So this is my arrangement of Abide With Me. I got to remember to grab the mic or you won't be able to hear me. Thank you very much. Again, I'm very proud of that one. And again, like I said, it was the catalyst to just have confidence that I might be able to do more of that. And so again, this recital is the culmination of 8 years, well, 6-ish years, I guess, of arranging and taking hymns that I've been exposed to and trying to do something beautiful with them. As we move to the next one, we are going to hear my arrangement of Holy, 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 and I will perform that after I kind of empty some stuff out of my horn. Thank you very much. All right. My next arrangement is of All Hail the Power of Jesus' Name. And it is a theme and variation. So a theme and variation in musical terms is a piece that has a main theme. So in this case, All Hail the Power of Jesus' Name. And then there's a subsequent like variations on the theme. And this is a very famous, or the style of theme and variations is a very common musical genre, I'm blanking on the word, but they're very common in classical music. And for some reason, when I heard this piece, it just said, ooh, this will lend itself very well to a theme and variation. So this is my arrangement, a theme and variation on All Hail the Power of Jesus' Name. And again, I'll empty a little bit before. Thank you for the little claps. Oops. Oh, yeah, you couldn't hear me. I just said thank you for the little claps. I appreciate it very much. All right. As we move forward, my next arrangement, and I think, let me just double check. Either this was the most recent one I've done or the second most recent, but this is my arrangement of Crown Him with Many Crowns. All right, let me just empty my horn and we'll get to it. Thank you very much. Ooh, multiple claps. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right. I'm going to grab a drink of water here real quick. Give me just a sec. Very helpful. All right, as we continue, the next arrangement is my arrangement of Blessed Assurance. Again, if you came in late, let me just maybe reshare it in the chat in case anyone didn't get it. Let's see, is it still there? Yeah. Anyway, there are lyrics. There is a PDF if you haven't accessed it that you can follow along on the lyrics of each of these hymns if that is desired. All right, with that being said, this is Blessed Assurance. Thank you kindly. All right. We have two more to go before I will transition into the other part of this type of recital, which is the testimonial or story, as it will. But our next one, before I get to that, is a medley. A medley is, in today's society, the term mashup is very popular, like a mashing up of two different songs. But medley is probably the more common term in musical circles. And so this is my name medley. It contains three different hymns. The first one is called The Name of Jesus. The second one is His Name is Wonderful. And the third one is There's Something About That Name. I honestly don't remember. I think there was somebody at my church several years ago that asked me if I could do this. I just don't remember what the inspiration was, but some point along the line, I did it. And so I'm sharing it with you. This is Name Medley. right. Thank you very much. All right. I have one more before I switch gears and turn to the quote testimonial part of this recital. So I will conclude this. You could call it the first half. Just for clarity, there is no quote intermission. My little testimonial could serve as that. So again, if you need to go to the bathroom or anything, it'd be the, you know, you'll have to do that on your own on your own time there. Anyway, so my final selection for the first half is the hymn "Nearer, My God, to Thee." This is most famous. I think it not. I mean, very famously. Not applied, but associated with the sinking of the Titanic. And it's, again, I know in the movie they did it, but I think it's actually documented that the string quartet or the string orchestra actually played this as the Titanic was going down. And so, I actually got the inspiration to arrange this when I was putting together my patriotic recital. I picked 3 hymns that I thought were very patriotic in nature or very Americana, and I felt like this one fit that. So that was the motivation to arrange it. And I would say that's where, again, if you're not familiar with these, this is where this one is maybe most familiar to many people. So this is "Near, My God, to Thee." Let me empty my horn and I will begin. One more. Thank you very much. All right. If this was a normal recital, I would say that completes the first half and we'd have an intermission. But again, because of the nature of this, we are going into my quote testimonial. Before we begin, I have prepared a Google slide, or you could call it, what's the term that they use? Oh, I'm blanking. It'll come to me later. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. This will be my roadmap. So when I was preparing this and trying to think, well, what do I have to offer? What can I say that's profound, or why should anyone listen to my story? I kind of settled on a theme. And the theme, or the title, if you want to call it, is The On-Ramps to God's Highway. And so as we move through this, I will do this. All right. So the first thing I'm going to clarify as I'm going down this rabbit hole is that within this theme, I have kind of two sub-themes, and that is, or analogies, if you will. And that is the analogy of the Autobahn versus the interstate. Now, I want to be clear. I don't actually know how the Autobahn in Germany really works, but my limited knowledge is that it has I wrote this out, it's very limited access compared to our interstate system. I think our interstate system has many more on-ramps, if you will. And so why I'm going to set the stage is I want this to kind of be in the back of your mind as just as a metaphor. So to me, when I think of the Autobahn, I think of it a very limited access, which then, if you want to complete it, it implies kind of the dogmatic interpretation of many religious views. And the reason I want to say that is that I know, like, when you're out in the world, especially as a teacher, and you see people where you can't talk about religion, I've kind of run into people that I think their most common, objection to religion as a whole is this dogmatic interpretation. And so again, for our emphasis, or for our metaphor, I want to make that clear. Now, for me, the interstate, again, has more on-ramps, which means it's more about the individual relationship with God that people have. And I think part of what I'm going to try to do through this testimonial is to kind of just say that people's pathway to God is going to be multifaceted, but the ultimate goal is, salvation and whatnot. And then I also, again, right here, multiple pathways to the ultimate destination or salvation, which I just said. And then I want to be very clear about this disclaimer. I am not claiming there are multiple ways to be saved. I am simply saying there are many different paths to the highway of God's plan and purpose for us. And then I have one more thing before I kind of go what we call stream of consciousness and kind of just go off in tangents, which is this statement. It's my preface. From the outset, I would like to say that I speak for no religious denomination, nor do I claim to be a theologian on any level. With that said, I cannot ignore the weight that I have been feeling, a pressing on my heart, if you will, that I have something unique to share, and that it is God's desire for me to share it. It is my hope that my story and subsequent insights I have gained can serve as either a model for or inspiration to others who are struggling to find meaning/answers in their life. As my journey has unfolded, I have needed to find more rational explanations for things. So my testimonial will be ultimately about the journey and the wrestling between rationalism and faith. Whether you have been a believer your whole life, or you have been or have not or have never been to church once, it is my sincerest hope that I can offer some food for thought to help you navigate this difficult world that we live in. And thank you. All right, so I need to start with the formative years, the early years. So like many people, I grew up in the 80s who are my age, and I did attend church fairly regularly. To be honest, I don't think I really remember my church experience, but what I do know is I was exposed to the basics, and I do think that that's very important, especially when we compare today's world. I think that more and more people are not exposed to the stories of the Bible, which then means that they might not have common frames of reference. This is a thing I use a lot. But again, for myself, it was just basically this idea that I was exposed to it, but I don't remember it ever feeling like it was a high priority, which again, good, bad, I don't know. I just need to set the stage that that's, I did learn a little bit. As I got a little older, junior high and high school, and this is important, I think, to my own story and my journey is, I also did notice the hypocrisy of kids. Now, I have to confess that I don't want to say I was a teacher's pet, but I was, and I kind of put this here, my praise-oriented childhood programmed me to think that everyone should be like me. I was very blessed in the sense that most of school was easy. I got praised a lot for my effort. I seemed to kind of be the type of person that, teachers and parents thought people should be like me. And so I guess without really realizing it, I think when I was younger, I tended to get a big ego. I tended to think that I saw kids act weird or, act contrary to what they do. They'd go to youth group or they go to church, and then I'd watch them at school, and I just find this like something about this wasn't adding up. But and so what I would say to anybody that's listening is, this is why that our actions need to be in alignment with our values. But as we go more into this again, but the other part is we're all sinners. We're all saved by the grace of God. We all struggle. We all, and so like there's a happy line, but as a young kid, I didn't understand this at all. And so for me and my story, these two things I think are very important. All right, now to stick with this format, this analogy of the highway, I want to talk about what I call or consider my first on-ramp to quote the highway of God. And that was when I was in Lubbock, Texas. Would have been early high school, or maybe even probably ninth grade, I think is when I started. But anyway, there was a large non-denominational church in Lubbock where I grew up called Trinity Church. And there were two pieces to the puzzle that were very impactful on me. And the first was that this large church had a basically full orchestra that played every week. And as someone by ninth grade or even by eighth grade, I knew that the horn was going to be a huge part of my life. My dad and I we played in the orchestra. And so every week I was actually going to church. And, it's like, I will be fully admit that most of the motivation was more just because I liked playing music. I was so passionate about music. So my passion for music got me through the door. But there was also this very talented, very profound pastor named Pastor Randall Ross, who I put up there. And I would say that I actually never really went to youth group in high school, which is kind of funny. I just played in the orchestra. And so I would, listen to Randall Ross. And so I think for my story, this was the first true kind of like, oh, there's some wisdom here. There's some profoundness here. Now, I was too young to understand any of it. Again, the motivation through the door was playing the horn. And again, I'm extremely grateful for this when I reflect back. But I do think that it's just, again, it's important to know that there are multiple ways that I think people will walk through that door. They're all looking for things that inspire them. I do think I'm more unique because of my background as a musician, especially at that age. But yeah, this was, again, for me, probably the most of my beliefs and most of the things that draw me to church are rooted in this part, my first on-ramp. And so again, as we go through this, my next slide is going to be titled Road Construction. And so again, of my story, if those that know or don't know, the big detour was when I was a junior in high school. I moved from Texas to Oregon. And, first of all, let's just talk culture shock. Let's just talk, it was a change. But what I can say during that time is it felt harder to find a church. It was at first me and my dad and then me and my family. And I do know that our church attendance just diminished, and good, bad, no judgment. It's just that because I kind of had a clear sense of the type of church that would resonate with me, the full orchestra, the dynamic pastor, moving to Oregon did not, I couldn't find that, I guess is the best way to say it. And again, I can remember trying out, I don't know, half a dozen churches here and there. And we landed on a few. But again, you can just see that when you don't have that consistent attendance or you don't find the kind of the thing that motivates you week to week, it's easy to kind of, again, have your church attendance diminish, or, you can see how culture, other influences can start to plant different seeds. And so again, I can recognize now upon reflection that this road construction, if you will, kind of derailed me. You could think of it. I mean, you could also literally think of it that, oh, I took an off ramp. But either way, again, it's like this is part of the whole analogy of the highway to God. So again, and then my next thing is this idea of kind of building my own highway. So again, what does this mean? It just means that we as human beings, I really believe we're all searching for meaning. And so when we go off, quote, on our own highway or get off the off ramp, we're going to look for those things that resonate with us. And so again, I have 4 kind of things here, and I'm going to kind of highlight them. Obviously, at my age of late high school, early college stuff, it's like I don't think I had a religious philosophy. I have some notes on my other screen here. It's like I always had respect for religion. I always considered that it was for the betterment of society. I never considered myself an atheist. The term I like is I just think I was a respectful agnostic. But again, I really just didn't, once I got to college, I did not really go to church for a long time. I can remember a few times here and there throughout my basically years between 18 and 35 where maybe life was feeling hard and I would go to a church a few times, just try to maybe looking for something, but I always ran into the same problem. Very few churches, at that time, no churches had the same reference point as my church in Lubbock. So again, since I didn't have a philosophy, I can now see was naive. The next part I put it kind of in quotes because I'm not Catholic. I didn't have Catholic family, but the Catholic guilt thing is something you hear a lot about. Now, I'm going to share this personally because it's the truth. But I can remember when I was younger, during this time, my grandmother would really lay on the guilt a lot. And I can look back now and say, yeah, she was trying to be helpful. She was trying to, quote, save me and help me by her own philosophy. But I can just speak, and I think this is true for many, many people, that guilt had the opposite effect. It definitely, I can put it this way, it was like a giant ramp close sign, if you will. The next thing that just doesn't help is that because I was praised for my intelligence, I always seemed that like through life at this point that if I just put enough mental energy into things, I could figure it out. And so I definitely have had pride and still do. I mean, this is one of my struggles is I have a lot of pride in my intelligence. And again, it's like, that's why I need what I call a rational explanation, a rational understanding, something that I can rationally understand for my belief in God. And then, of course, again, we just live in over time. Again, I should have said this and I didn't. In the 80s, I feel confident in saying that at that point, there's still the vast majority of Americans still attended church and believed in God, whether they attended church or not, meaning that the world still was rooted in, I'll just say, in the Bible. People deviate, people go off, but as we're now 30 years removed from the 80s, I can't help but notice that the secular world has more influence. And again, it's not, I don't want to I'm not here to be judgmental. I'm just here to kind of say that I think that's the truth. And so I recognize that stuff slowly chipped away at me, and had influence. And so again, as I got older, it's like, and I got more rigid and more indoctrinated with different things, it's like it got harder to kind of see the patterns of reality that I wanted to follow, or the pattern of truth that I wanted to aim at. And so there's a lot of mixed messages out there. And I think that's part of why I'm feeling compelled to share. I think that if we got on the same page about more things, we as a society would be better. And I want to help people. That's my teacher nature, as you will. And so now my next slide, again, I'm trying to use titles that kind of relate back to the highway analogy. So this next one is eminent domain, which, again, if you don't know, it's the idea that the government can come in and take your property if they need to do something that's for the greater good. But I'm equating this to God's plan here. So I'm not saying the government came in and did anything. But again, what I've seen, these patterns that I've observed in my attendance in church and just in the world as it is that the vast majority of people tend to look for meaning or look for religion when times are hard, right? They're looking for answers, and there does seem to be this sense that the Bible, the church, God, however you want to look at it, does seem to hold some of these answers. And so, again, I want to just say that the biggest trial that I faced in this kind of form in my more adult years was relationships trials. And, I'm being, again, that I said, I'm very hyper intelligent and look for answers. As my relationships, as my relationship diminished, which, just to always state this, the beautiful thing is I have two wonderful, most amazing kids I could ever ask for because of that relationship. But I definitely struggled. I struggled to find my place. I struggled to know what to do. I struggled to know how to lead. I just struggled. And as I went down very many different rabbit holes at first, read a lot of books and whatnot, I did start to notice that the advice that seemed to always resonate, but also seemed to be rooted in the truth, also always seemed to be the advice that was always kind of found in church or found in the Bible or found in Judeo-Christian values, however you want to look at it. And I can remember that when things were hard, I was looking for answers, and I did start to go to church more. And I did find a church here in Salem that did seem to have a small orchestra, and it seemed to have what we call traditional music. And, the pastors that I heard seemed good. They weren't what I was used to in Lubbock, but it was enough to say, you know what? I need to start acting a little bit more. I need to explore more. I need to be more consistent. And so when you confront these trials, well, I've already said that. It's like you tend to look for answers when things are not going well. And so, again, I can look back now with gratitude to some extent that the trials I went through started to chip away and form a clearer sense of my values, my sense of my beliefs and my faith. But it's hard. When you're going through it, it's very easy to lose perspective. I'm fond of saying this little phrase that you cannot heal in the same place you've been hurt. So I had to make choices. I had to leave that relationship, and it took a while. But again, when I just, like I said, I keep exploring and for the truth. I keep reflecting and looking for information that helps make sense of the world, and the patterns of reality that I see, they just tend to always come back to the Bible. And as I continue this, I'm going to try to make that case. And this is, I think, the main reason, or this is my main preface or premise is the right word, of my journey, is that where I'm at right now, there is more rational sense in the Bible than, hocusy-pocusy stuff that a lot of people think it's just this spiritual nonsense. And again, that's where I'm at in my journey. I can see the rational correlation in there. So this is my on-ramp number 2. And, I would say in general, most of my stuff is going to center now around this concept and how I've seen the connection between personal growth and between religion and church. Now, for me personally, there were 2 main influences, catalysts, people that came into my life, not literally came into my life, but their books and their writings and their stuff. And you can see it on the screen. It's John Maxwell and Jordan Peterson. Now, John Maxwell, for those that don't know, was a former pastor, but he made a transition into what you would call leadership and success. And so he started to not preach necessarily, but he started to teach on how to be a successful person. And, when I think about, I'm a very competent person. I try to be someone who is competent in everything they do. Anyway, I started reading a lot of his books, but also as a former pastor, what I started to realize is that means that all of his conclusions, all the things that he sees as how you go to success, foundationally, they're from his experience in the Bible. And he would do enough of the audios and the books that I read where he would, outline a little bit of his religious beliefs, but he tried to stay away from that. And, he's trying to find the truth, the fundamental patterns of reality that we could all operate under. But I can tell now, or looking back, that it was a very important seed that was planted that allowed me to kind of go, a lot of the things that seem to be true, that seem to lead to success, that seem to lead to a happier life, that seem to lead to better relationships, they do also seem to have some sort of beginnings in Judeo-Christian ethics and Judeo-Christian beliefs, i.e. the Bible. Then I was exposed to Jordan Peterson, and he's a clinical psychologist from Canada. But he's been very fascinated with, again, I guess the thing is how cultures, especially during the 20th century, how did things go so off the rails? And as he again went down so many rabbit holes, and when I say off the rails, I mean like the world wars, the Holocaust, the very painful things that as human beings have happened in history. And he kind of was trying to figure out why these things happen. And his conclusion is, I mean, and this, again, I'm paraphrasing, I cannot do him justice, but his conclusion kind of had to do with that this central thing that held the West together, which is the Bible, which is Judeo-Christian values, started through rationalism, through nihilism, through the death of God, as Nietzsche has said. Like, he started to notice through all his observations and all his rabbit holes that he's gone, all the reading, and he's a very insightful, very intelligent man, that as religion has moved from the center of our Western values and culture, these other things kind of rise up to try to take it over or replace it. And I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just my rational brain, but it started to resonate with me. Now, you can't see it, but on my wall I have 24 rules that he's done. And the rules, he's written 4 books that I know of. One of them is the newest one. He says, "We Who Wrestle with God." So as he's gone through his journey, he is probably, in my humble opinion, the biggest converter of many people back to religion, because he's making a connection that we have to take individual responsibility. And that individual responsibility is mirrored in the story of the Bible, like Jesus on the cross. I mean, he was sinless, a sinless person who died. Let's forget about dying for our sins for a sec. His story is that he took on the weight of the world. He was persecuted beyond measure. He was a sinless person, which means it was unjustified. And it's like, there's just this connection I see. And when you're somebody like me who desires to be competent, desires to do great things, desires to be a great model for his kids, I cannot ignore these realities. And so these two people, John Maxwell and Jordan Peterson, have probably had the greatest impact in my better rational understanding of why we should be cautious to take the Bible out of our society, or maybe more specifically, to take religion out of our individual lives. So anyway, I'm going to move on to my next slide, and kind of just, I've already kind of touched on some of these, but I kind of feel like I've learned 3 big lessons at this point from my journey. This first one I already hinted at. The Bible is the foundation for Western culture. To ignore its place at the center is to welcome our own destruction. And I think if we study, why do we study history? To learn from our mistakes and not repeat it. Well, the 20th century was one of the most atrocious centuries in all of history. And if Jordan Peterson's premise is right, it means that because we lost our way in faith, these other ideologies came into existence to try to replace it. And I don't know, I can't ignore the histories of the lessons of history. I can't ignore things that resonate as true to me. And so again, I just think it's something we should think about. This one, I have to admit, is one of the more powerful things, and I hope I can even do this justice as I try to explain it. But I've also realized that hypocrisy is the point. So if you claim to be a Christian, that means you're claiming to live by a set of values that are very limiting. They have kind of like, it's like a wall. If you think about it, there's these walls, there's these things that say, hey, these things are no longer right. They are sinful. But because human beings are, I don't think they're good by nature. I think we have to train that into us. Again, that's my premise. Other people would disagree, and that's fine. But because once you claim to be a Christian, it basically means that you're saying, I'm standing for these principles, but you're going to fall short because everyone falls short of the glory of the God. And so the hard part is people see our hypocrisy, and I was just like that. I would see the hypocrisy of people, and I'd be like, oh, they're such a hypocrite. Why would I want this? Why would I want that? But if you don't stand up for a value, if you don't put I guess, walls in front of you or put stakes in the ground that say, hey, I believe in these things, then basically you're saying, well, everything's okay. Well, a society can't function that way, right? A house divided cannot stand, all those, cliche things. But I guess what I'm really trying to say is I now realize that because we always fall short of the glory of God. We're all sinners. We're all hypocrites. But at least we're striving for something bigger. And so my own personal ability to forgive, my own personal ability to have more understanding of people is rooted in the fact that, yeah, we're all human beings. We're all hypocrites. I just would like us all to strive for higher and admit our faults. But I can give more grace because of that. And I don't feel like I don't feel the need to try to control other people because, again, I feel like I know what I believe. And I also know I'm a hypocrite. I'm going to fail, but I'm going to keep striving for better. And then maybe the final just big thing that really resonates with me, and this is hard as a rational person, but I cannot quantify God in human terms. I think many of us struggle with, well, why would God allow this? Why would God allow this? Why is there war? Why are all these things? And it's like, for us to try to understand him in human terms, we're going to always fail. Now, again, I never want to say anything that's sacrilegious because, again, I like I said, I don't claim to be a theologian or anything. But one of Jordan Peterson's concepts is that the Bible is kind of a reference for the animating spirit that we all have within us. Now, for me, I like this because what it tells me is it says, if I think of God as this animating spirit within me, something I can't actually quantify, but it is something I need to listen to. It's like, we could call it conscience. We could call it all these different things, but we all have feelings that are trying to guide us in a certain direction. And as I've grown, as I've become, I think, more aware of that everything happens for a reason, that there's a connection in everything, that connection could be God. I mean, I just start to see these things through a different lens. And I do have this, I feel like I'm at a place where I'm able to let go a lot more of things because I don't have to understand as much. I can see how patterns emerge. I can see connections and things. But yeah, I think one of the big mistakes that most people try to do is they try to, again, define God in human terms. And no one is ever going to do that. I mean, he's beyond space and time according to everything I understand. And so like, there's just no way we can do that. And it's been, again, I guess I'll just say it's been very cathartic as I've learned to let go of thinking that I can understand God. But according to what I've learned, that the Word of God is the way that we discern the truth that guides us. So, again, if we're reading the Bible, if we're what we focus on expands, if we're constantly trying to do things that improve our lives through the lens of the Bible, then in essence, God is speaking to us. But again, since I don't now try to understand him in human terms, I feel more receptive to that. I feel like I have a higher or better ability to see God's plan. I can see that more than I used to. And so for me, and to me, that's a rational explanation for it. Now, I don't know if you think it is, but I think it is. And so all this is to say, these are kind of the lessons. So I do have a final conclusion. And I did actually type this all out because I had to really reflect on what I wanted to say. Because like I said, I do not want to be a hypocrite. I do not want to say anything sacrilegious. I do not claim to speak for any religious denomination or anything. These are just the insights that I'm gathering, and I hope that I can continue. So I will just read this in my final conclusion. Whether we want to admit it or not, Western civilization and all the benefits we inherited from its development are rooted in Judeo-Christian values. So this means that the Bible is the foundation of our identity as humans who dwell in America. If you look at the current state of the world and are not happy with it, I would suggest that the most logical explanation is that the center of our culture, i.e. the Bible, has been mocked, ridiculed, and systematically attacked to near death. As a result, we live in a fractionated and selfish society where each individual thinks that their truth must be validated at all costs. I am reminded of the saying, a house divided cannot stand. I also believe that it is up to each individual to carry their burdens or metaphorical cross, if you will. This is a fundamental idea of Jordan Peterson's message that has resonated with me since I first heard it. Jordan's analysis that led him to the conclusion, or to this conclusion, is an extraction of his own deep dive into the biblical corpus and the connection between the salvation it offers and the psychological truths that seem to be embedded in the Bible itself. John Maxwell, as a former pastor, uses biblical principles masked as personal growth advice. His insights were instrumental in my initial process to admit to myself that I needed to grow in order to reach my maximum potential. As my church attendance increased, as I read more books, listened to more religious voices, and intentionally made the choice to grow to my full potential, I started to see a pattern of reality come into focus. A pattern that if you follow the rabbit holes that lead you to a better and more fulfilling life, all of the principles and advice seem to have their roots in the Bible. When I take all of this experience and information into account, I am left with only one conclusion: that God exists. That God, however you define him, is contained in every human life, and that whether you believe to your core that the Bible is the divine word of God, or you think the Bible is just the stories that reveal the collective unconscious of humanity, I think we would be ignorant fools to ignore the wisdom and spiritual nature of the Bible. Jordan Peterson is often asked if he believes in God. His response is something to the effect of, "I don't like the wording of that question." It implies that the person asking the question already has a preconceived notion of who God is and how one should worship him. Jordan typically responds with, "I act as if God exists." Now, I know that theologians would say that is all well and good, but you will not be saved unless you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and fair enough. But I'd also say that you need to make the case first that one should submit to God's authority. Well, what if a person doesn't have the same common frame of reference or belief as you do? I love this quote, which I am giving John Maxwell credit for. You are more likely to act your way into feeling than feel your way into action. In layman's terms, you fake it till you make it. So the answer that Jordan gives resonates with me. It indicates that he strives for alignment to the highest possible ideal, and that ideal is represented by Jesus in human form and God in spiritual form. This is what I strive for as well. Now, I can't answer for sure if God exists or not, but when I let go of trying to make sense of his plan in terms of human perspective and rules, I felt a freedom that I hadn't before. I could see clear reasons why I had to struggle through adversity to make me stronger. I believe that what you focus on expands. As I focused more on clarifying my values and then aligning my actions to those values, I started feeling a contentment that I didn't know was possible. So for me, as I aimed to grow to my maximum potential, my spiritual beliefs grew in proportion to that aim. I do not have all the answers, and I certainly never will, but I am moving through the world as if God exists. I recognize I am a hypocrite, yet I find comfort in the grace that Jesus provides through his death. So I ask you in closing, what on-ramp will you take onto God's highway? Thank you for that. I will get back to the music because I know that's what all of you would like. So anyway, thank you for listening. And I hope genuinely that something I said planted a seed, made you think about something maybe you hadn't thought about. Maybe you look to get to know John Maxwell or Jordan Peterson, or, maybe just the music itself spoke to you and you go down rabbit holes of listening to hymns. I don't know. But I do feel, again, like I said, I feel very compelled to share my story. So with that said, I will get back to the music. I have 7 more selections for you. I'm going to start with the hymn, "To God Be the Glory." Thank you very much. All right. Next is It Is Well With My Soul. This one has, again, I'm not going to go into the whole explanation of the story, partly because I'll probably butcher it, but it has a very interesting story of how it was composed. It is also one of my grandmother's other favorite, which, again, I think this was literally the second arrangement that I made. So this is my arrangement of It Is Well With My Soul. I will empty my horn and then get going. All right. Thank you so much. Again, I know I talked a lot during that testimonial, so I'm going to try to now get moving through this. So our next hymn is my arrangement of Great Is Thy Faithfulness. Again, I'm going to empty and then we'll get going. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your vigilance and patience. I know I've gone a little longer than I had planned, so I think I have four more, and again, I'll just get to them. This is my arrangement of the hymn Day by Day. All right, three more to go. Thank you. This next one, again, I mean, I have maybe a few favorites, but this one is high on my favorite list. This is my arrangement of How Firm a Foundation. And again, I'm going to empty my horn before I get started. All right, we're nearing the end. Two more to go. Now, just a preface. This next one is actually not a hymn. It's actually an original composition, but its title and its mood actually fit probably. There's actually a piece I wrote for my mom on Mother's Day back in 2020. It's called Reminisce, right? Reminiscing about things. So it's my hope that this will just be a nice kind of non-hymn, but reflective type piece that, again, just lets you reflect and calmly think about, again, hopefully some things I said today. So anyway, this is entitled Reminisce, and it's an original composition. Thank you. All right. We are on to our last hymn. Again, thank you for your patience. I went, like I said, I probably pontificated a little longer than I needed to. But thank you for being here. I'm going to conclude this recital with probably what most people would deem the most famous hymn out there in America, which is Amazing Grace. Thank you very much and enjoy. All right. This concludes my hymn and testimonial recital. Thank you so much for coming. I look forward to doing more of these. Hopefully, tell your friends, as they say. And again, have a wonderful Easter weekend, and God bless you. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the flip side. Bye-bye.